any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no. It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Well, apparently it's a yes. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre repeatedly denied the president would pardon his son, and that obviously changed. So what exactly was to that? Martha MacCallum is here, anchor and executive editor of The Story. You know what? To that point, she was asked about this, Karine Jean-Pierre, and sort of doubled down on, this is a decision that the president has made, and they're sticking to it. I mean, you can make the case that she sort of made the situation worse in that gaggle.
Honestly, I look at those responses from her, and I think she should be very angry today.
Yeah, usually presidents wait until they have one foot out the door, but, he wanted to do this before Hunter Biden was sentenced. I mean, the motivation to get a shorter sentence is to cooperate on other people, so that motivation is now gone. You played a clip from Tom Cotton. It's not just offenses committed, it's offenses that may have been committed or he may have been part of it, all the way going back a decade. So it could not be broader than what he did for a guy who said he wasn't going to do it.
Right, and that obviously was the sticking point for a lot of Republicans who pointed to how many times, Andy, that President Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre at the White House briefing room said he wasn't going to do it, not going to do it, won't do it. Biden in his statement said, "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong." The special counsel, David Weiss, doesn't think that. Andy?
Well, no, and if you've looked carefully at the prosecutions, where he was singled out was for favorable treatment. A normal, everyday American who was looking at the gun case, for example, would have been prosecuted probably by late 2019, if not early 2020. The tax evidence, Brett, was just overwhelming, and anybody who had that kind of the breadth of that kind of a tax offense would have been prosecuted for it. So what was shocking in this case was how long they dragged their feet. And I think that was very intentional. And it goes to the business about the pardon going now all the way back to 2014. The most important and egregious financial crimes in this case happened in the window of time when Joe Biden was Obama administration vice president. The Biden Justice Department dragged their feet so that never became the main part of any prosecution against Hunter. And now the pardon is obviously intended to discourage any investigation of that.
We've seen other presidents, obviously, that deal with family members. We saw the pardon of Charles Kushner, who is now the nominee to be the ambassador of France. That's Jared Kushner's father. We saw the pardon of Roger Clinton. Trey, it does happen. There are likely more pardons to come before President Biden leaves office. But does this change the paradigm a bit?
It may change the paradigm, but it's hard to change the Constitution. I mean, there's a reason, Brett, that you don't let family members preside over family members or serve on the jury or prosecute them or defend them. I mean, that's like the biggest disqualifier in real life is if you know the person, you can't be involved in the judgment. This is the exception, but it requires a constitutional amendment, and we haven't had one in quite some time, and I don't know that this is going to be the next one.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Not true. Fox News alert this morning, fallout over President Biden's big reversal as he pardons his son Hunter after repeatedly claiming he would never pardon his son Hunter. Fox News legal editor Carrie Urban joins us now. Carrie, your reaction to something we all knew was coming and the letter that followed to explain.
Yeah, we knew this was coming. We knew that he wasn't telling the truth. We knew he was going to do it one way or the other. But I have to say, Brian, my takeaway from all of this is that this is actually fantastic, politically speaking, for Donald Trump. Joe Biden has lowered the bar so much here in offering this pardon to Hunter Biden that I think Donald Trump will be able to pardon a whole host of people, including January 6th, without necessarily the pushback he would have received otherwise. Of course, the people in the media will complain because they always do. But like, what can they point to at this point? So you have that. Maybe he could even explore preemptive pardon for himself. And then, of course, he doesn't just now have a mandate from the American people in cleaning up the justice system who are sick of lawfare. Now he has it from President Biden, too. They're all on the same page. So they all agree that there is a problem in the justice system. The pardons are going to become a lot easier. And also, Joe Biden just pulled the ultimate move in overriding the DOJ, which, of course, in the past, people would go crazy if Donald Trump had anything to say about what the Department of Justice was doing. So I personally think President Biden just made things a whole lot easier for Donald Trump going to term 2.
I think that's a good point, too. And it's the first time I can remember Democrats coming out blatantly against him. You have Governor Jared Polis says, I understand it's his son, but he thought he can't support it, this action. It's a bad precedent. She could be abused by later presidents, case in point. And Congressman Greg Stanton, a Democrat from Arizona. I respect Biden, but I think he got this wrong. This wasn't a politically motivated prosecution. Hunter committed felonies and was convicted by a jury of his peers. What I find stunning, and must really bother you as somebody who lives in the law world, is that he says, I trust the justice system, the justice system, but not now, not here, but I still trust it. Also, he lied on something so I thought over the weekend I decided to make the decision. Why wait? We know you didn't decide over the weekend. So why would someone, if you were his attorney, why put all these things that are so easily exploited in a letter to explain something so controversial?
Because I don't think he cares. He's trying to have it both ways on his way out. What does he have to lose at this point? Nothing. There'll be a 24-hour, 48-hour news cycle on this, if that, maybe a line in his Wikipedia page. But what kind of ramifications does Joe Biden face for this? Nothing. He really doesn't. And so I think that, again, politically, it's good for Donald Trump. It's not bad for Joe Biden. And I will say this, Brian, I thought it was interesting in his statement about them treating Hunter differently. I actually agree with him a little bit on that, because they did give him special treatment up front. And the only reason we know that they did is because of those whistleblowers. And then when the political pressure was so intense as to what they had done, and then we saw it all fall apart in court, that's when they changed. So they made a deal with Hunter they never should have made in the first place. So that was bad. That's special treatment. But then they pulled the deal, which, by the way, is also not fair once you've done something like that. So they messed up this entire case. He's not wrong in that he was treated differently. I just have a little bit of a different perspective on how differently he was treated.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Charlemagne. The Democrats have tried to say that Trump is the liar. And in many instances, he is the gold medalist of liars, in my own opinion, and I think many others. But when you say Trump's anti-democratic, but yet you shut down the primary, no debates, you say that, the border's fine, it's secure, we're not for open borders, but yet people are pouring in over the border. When you say that, you had a cold and, that was the reason for the debate, all of these things, the economy's going well, people know that wasn't shooting straight with them. And so that's been the narrative. And I think people have stopped trusting the Democratic Party. I don't think people necessarily trust Donald Trump either. But this is the world we're living in. And I think as a Democrats, you listen to what Charlemagne's saying, like, get off of our high horse. Let's stop pretending, like we're always holier than thou. Trump is a unique individual who lies, who gave the pardon to Kushner while his son was getting, billions of dollars from the Middle East when he was in charge of the Middle East. Nobody investigated that. Merrick Garland didn't prosecute Trump. So he didn't prosecute Biden either. It's just like he didn't prosecute anybody.
You know what? I'll tell you who.
So the reality of it is,
I'll tell
there's
you
going to be a reset.
Democrats
got to get their act together and rebrand the party.
I've heard you say that. Tommy, I think the clearest evidence of where the American people are happened on November 5th in the election. We had a popular victory for former President Trump, who will return to office. You had a sweep of the swing states. You had movement across the country in one direction, and that was towards more conservatism across the country. This is from Biden's statement, Tommy. I just want to put this up for everybody to see again. He says there has been an effort, this is his reasoning for the pardon, there has been an effort to break Hunter. He has been 5.5 years sober. Even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution in trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me. And there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. Your thoughts, Tommy?
Well, here's what else bothers me. I think it's really insulting for Americans that have gone through addiction issues that don't blame their crimes and their felonies on their addiction. But furthermore, I would say a couple pillars of the Democrat Party, at least as we've been told, is gun control and pay your fair share. Taxes, taxes, taxes. Well, I guess that's thrown out the window. And in fact, the Bidens are above the law. I would also say this. I think this is about fatherly love. I think this is also about Joe Biden protecting his own tail. But I also think that this is President Joe Biden's last middle finger to the Democrat Party that threw him under the bus, that threw him out of the way for re-election and anointed Kamala Harris in his position. I don't think he's concerned about his legacy in terms of this. I think he feels his legacy is being the only one to defeat Donald Trump. So he's going to go out kicking and screaming. He's going to go out with the last laugh. I think that he did this because he's going to protect himself and protect his family. But he doesn't care what position it puts the Democrats in. I mean, we're seeing it all over the media. The Democrats are no longer able to cry and moan about Donald Trump's supposed abuses of power when you've got Joe Biden doing this. He's put the Democrats in a tough position, and I don't think he minds that at all.
I'm not going to subject you to this other thing unless we need it, about how Karine Jean-Pierre said a million times from the podium that he would not do the pardon. But that is what happened. So we're going to take it on the table here. Judge, let's start with you. The one thing about this pardon is how sweeping it is.
Oh, yeah.
Like a whole 11 years, like anything that he did within that time frame.
Did you notice that?
I certainly did.
You know, and some of those years encompass the years that David Weiss, as a so-called special counsel now, I think he is, allowed the statute of limitations to run in the highest earning years that Hunter Biden had, and the years that certainly involved his father and his business dealings. Look, they've done everything they can to try to cover up what they did. They have denied, they have lied. Joe Biden started out this presidency by saying, I know nothing about my son's businesses, and he's ending his presidency by lying again and pardoning his son. The bottom line here is that they're afraid of something. They're afraid of the Trump Justice Department being weaponized and going after Hunter for things that David Weiss did not indict him for. And, you know, only Donald Trump can speak to that issue. But let me just say a couple things, Dana, and I'll be very quick here. Look, they knew that jail time was coming for Hunter Biden. He's convicted of 2 felonies, not 1, 2. And if Joe Biden says there's no reasonable prosecutor who would look at these facts and reach the same conclusion, he was singled out because of my son. Well, if he was singled out because he was your son, why didn't you fire Merrick Garland? If the Justice Department is so selective in their prosecutions, fire the guy that you hired. OK, let's talk about the fact that he's always said that no one is above the law. Hunter Biden is a classic example of someone who's above the law because he was never even sentenced. Most of the pardons that we hear about are pardons where someone has served their time, they paid their debt to society, and they're going to end up, you know, getting it removed. It's an impediment going forward. Not this case. We won't even know what his sentence would have been. And then for him to call out the media and selective prosecution is absurd. A jury found him guilty. Are you saying that you don't believe in the jury system anymore, Mr. President? And by the way, is your son stupid? He pled guilty to 6 tax evasion counts. So if that's selective prosecution, why didn't he take it to trial and say, this is a selective prosecution? So look, it's all about Joe Biden lying. He's starting and ending his presidency in the same way.
And Charlemagne the God said this today, Jessica. Let's play that for everyone.
I just want Democrats to stop acting like they are on this moral high ground politically when they have shown us they're not, you know, whether it's skipping the primary process when Biden stepped down and things like Biden pardoning his son. Stop acting like y'all the pure party and Republicans aren't.
All right, Jessica, there's mixed reaction from the left on this. Where do you sit?
Yeah, there is. And I think that a lot of people are doing political jockeying, right? Like if I'm thinking about running in the future, I want to be on record as saying this is an abuse of power. And maybe we should have a larger conversation about presidential pardons because it seems like they're perhaps too sweeping and that on your way out, you can just about do anything. I think that for a lot of rank and file Democrats, they actually would rather see Joe Biden do this because this feels like Mitch McConnell vibes. Someone who's like, we're not going to see Merrick Garland before Donald Trump comes into office, and I'm going to make sure that Supreme Court seat is open. It has more backbone than they're used to seeing from Joe Biden. He should have always said maybe, though, about this. It was, and I said, you guys asked me, well, do you believe him? And I said, I have no reason not to believe him, but you would think that any parent would be thinking in the back of their mind, I don't want my kid to go to jail. And if it's true what Karine Jean-Pierre said about the timing of this, I'm sure that this weekend the news rolled in that Charles Kushner is going to be the ambassador to France, a very cushy job, someone who was pardoned for what Chris Christie, who prosecuted him, called one of the most loathsome and disgusting crimes. I mean, the guy videotaped.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the juxtaposition.
Well, he
of
served
that,
time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he served
did.
time.
Okay.
Kushner did. He paid his debt to society.
Yeah.
That's the end of it.
And the NBC News report, Jessica, says that this is NBC News saying that Biden was saying publicly, of course I'm not going to pardon him, but that privately having conversations saying, of course it's on the table. And this is why no one believed him anyway. Now all the lies, I had the 4 lies, I'm going to add the 5th lie. And this is the one.
I don't disagree with it. He should have just always said, maybe, I don't know. I have to see where the chips fall on this. But one of the messages that came out of the election was that voters don't think Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy. They don't care about norms or any of the things that Democrats were campaigning on. And I think that Joe Biden just essentially said, on my way out, I don't care anymore, and I'm just going to protect my kid.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm buying all of that, but I want to hear what you think.
I'd protect
Jesse?
my kid if Jesse Jr. did something bad.
But you
I'd
probably
pardon
wouldn't
him.
let him be on the board of Burisma and send you a check for $300.
Probably not.
You
I
wouldn't be
wouldn't
your bag man.
I
Jesse
wouldn't
would
need the
definitely
money.
let him do that.
I wouldn't need the money like Joe Biden's family, who couldn't make an honest buck.
It's prime time.
Maybe my mom wouldn't pardon me, but I'm sure my father would. But that's the point, is that everybody knew he was going to pardon his son. Right. Even Jessica knew. Oh, you didn't expect Joe Biden to lie? The man's lied his whole career, Jessica. Politicians lie. I mean, Democrats are now trying to wrap their heads around the fact that we're like, well, maybe we're not the party of moral superiority. Maybe we're not the party of Democrat ideals and principles. How many lies can you guys take? They lied about the laptop, the lab leak, the coup, now the pardon. Even Democrats are saying, I don't feel so great about these guys saying that they're the party of principle anymore. This guy and all the rest of these politicians prove time and time again, they're just like the regular, sleazy, scummy, corrupt politicians. They'll do anything.
So they're just like Trump.
They'll do anything. All politicians lie to protect their families, to protect their power, protect their money, Jessica. And anybody with a brain could see this coming a mile away. The difference is Trump wouldn't have lied about it. Trump comes in and Trump's like, yeah, I'm going to pardon J6ers. I'm going to fire the FBI director, and I'm going to recess appoint my cabinet if the Senate gives me trouble. And you know what? He probably will. And people respect that. We want people that keep promises, not people who break promises. And this just proves the entire term was a cover-up. As the judge said, a blanket pardon to 14? Oh, just when the portfolio for Ukraine got handed to the big guy? What's that about, Jessica? Why would he need to go back that far? Think about it. This whole setup that they had was a big money laundering scheme. He'd go around the world, sell access to his dad, and then the FBI and the CIA would look to see who was trying to scam the U.S. government. And then ever notice that everybody around Hunter Biden is either in prison or on federal wiretaps? This whole thing was an intelligence operation.
When Jared Moskowitz asked James Comer, he said, I'll do it. Let's impeach Joe Biden. And James Comer flipped out, and no Republicans wanted to go on record about impeaching him because they didn't have it.
Donald Trump got impeached for looking into what Joe just pardoned his son for.
Yeah, but
you guys said it's okay for foreign nationals to bribe a first family?
Yeah, but how
and
many
as long as it doesn't hit the
politicians-
guy's checking account, and then a check hits the checking account, and you're like, oh, I don't know.
Let's get Charlie in. You've been in D.C. for a while. I've seen a lot of things. On the scale of 1 to 10, like with 10 being the most brazen, how brazen was this?
Well, it's pretty brazen, but I agree that we all knew this was going to happen. And it's not surprising that Joe Biden would be lying. He has lied throughout his entire career. Before Barack Obama plucked him out of obscurity, he was known almost exclusively for his failure at campaigns because he lied about absolutely everything. So all of that's not really a surprise. Right. I think what's kind of interesting is the Democrat reaction to it. I think the fact that they are kind of freaking out has a lot to do with the fact that
it's like Joe Biden rolled another grenade into the Democrat Party as he's being forced off the stage by confirming basically what Donald Trump's entire campaign is, which is that the Department of Justice is filled with corruption and that there are all these political persecutions going on. And now, I mean, if you read his statement and just take out the sort of absurd things he says about Hunter Biden being persecuted, it sounds like a statement that Donald Trump would have made. Yeah. The truth is, Hunter Biden is the most privileged criminal in Washington. He's gotten every advantage. And so when he talks about a political persecution, it's not in the way that he thinks. The last thing I think is kind of interesting is that usually politicians wait until January 20th to drop their controversial pardons. He's doing it now. So my question is, who is he going to pardon on January 20th? Is he going to pardon his brother? Is he going to pardon himself? This pardon is so extraordinary because of the length, but also because it was a prospective pardon. It pardoned Hunter all the way to midnight. Yeah. So it pardoned him into the future, which is a great thing to have. Is he going to pardon himself into the future when he walks out the door? I would bet money that Joe Biden pardons himself.
I wasn't surprised at all. This was something that was expected. You can tell by the maneuvering of defense counsel that this was on the horizon. And the thing that's surprising is that the President of the United States lied to the American people about what he was going to do. And really it calls into question, other things that he may have been untruthful on right now.
I think one of the questions that is on a lot of people's minds, Joseph, is whether or not the president did this to protect himself and his own potential understanding of these taxes, these business entities. But here's what President Biden said in his statement. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out because he is my son, and that is wrong. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. Joseph, what's your reaction to that?
I honestly think that that's completely ludicrous. I'm a Democrat, and I'm a person that believes in the rule of law. When you look at what he was charged with, criminal tax evasion, and what he pled guilty to, there's thousands of taxpayers who honestly file their taxes. They pay their taxes on time. And I think they should be disappointed by this because they're held up to a standard then that's different than the political elite. And I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's what I'm most disappointed by, was that this person was given a free pass for a 10-year period to essentially commit whatever criminal conduct that they wanted to commit.
Yeah, so this pardon covers 2014 to 2024. Gary, do you think, and this goes back to the question and that you spoke to Bret Baier about way back when, do you think that any of this would have led to President Joe Biden, and do you think he's protecting himself just as much in this move?
Well, it was clear the Department of Justice didn't allow us to take any investigative steps that would have led to President Joe Biden. But even in the investigative steps we did take and some of the work done by the House and their impeachment inquiry, it was clear that Joe Biden was involved, and it was really selling the access and giving Hunter Biden the opportunity to get these lucrative contracts while providing really no service overseas.
Joe, what do you think about that? Does this move, this pardon, protect Joe Biden, the President of the United States, from potential legal ramifications?
Well, first off, his own Justice Department tried to protect him from any thorough investigation being done by us. We were limited in the questions we were allowed to ask witnesses. We weren't allowed to talk to family members. So his own Justice Department shielded the family from being investigated. And it wasn't until Gary and I stepped forward, David Weiss was announced as special counsel, that actual criminal charges were brought forward in this case, and he actually pled guilty to those charges. And I want to be clear on something, that criminal tax evasion, what he pled guilty to, is not the fact that he didn't timely pay or file his tax returns. He filed false tax returns willfully when he was sober after he wrote his memoir, which he profited off of. And that's what I want to be so clear on, is that this was conduct after he became sober. This was felony conduct after he was sober. And it was clever, and the president's letter didn't bring up any of that conduct.
Stuart Kaplan's a former FBI special agent. Stuart, happy Thanksgiving. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
What do you think of cash at the Bureau?
Excellent choice. Jesse, you asked me a year ago what I would do. I said I would drive a bulldozer through the 7th floor of FBI headquarters. President-elect Trump has one-upped me. Kash Patel is the wrecking ball that's going to shake the FBI foundation, and he's going to realign and reinstitute the integrity and the level of trustworthiness that has been eroded in the last 4 years. He is a great choice for the American people, and I applaud the president.
Some people are worried on the left that Kash is going to come in there and he's going to investigate and prosecute all of these bad guys that have been doing Trump dirty, that have been up to no good. Do they have the right to fear that?
Not at all. I think Kash Patel is going to align himself with good people. Obviously, his effectiveness will be based upon the people that he hand selects. I'm hoping some retired agents that are well qualified to come in and kind of assist him in the direction that the FBI needs to go, in a new direction. So this is a positive selection for the American people.
All right, well, Primetime would like to suggest that Stuart Kaplan be deputy director of the FBI. Just throwing it out there. I'm sure he's doing just fine in the private sector and doesn't need the trouble.
Well, to be honest, we've always had these ongoing complaints about the corruption associated with the Biden administration and the influence peddling scandal that brought in millions to his family. President Biden lied repeatedly when asked if he knew of these business dealings. He said he didn't have any knowledge of the business dealings. He said he didn't have any chance to meet these clients or met with them in person. Those have been proven to be false as well. But the pardon question came up repeatedly, and both he and the White House were adamant that they weren't considering and would not give a pardon. And as in 2020, when he lied about his knowledge about the business dealings of his son, he was running for re-election in 2024 when he lied about his intentions on pardoning his son. Now, the language of this pardon is virtually unprecedented. Yes. I mean, Nixon was very, very broad. But we've never seen anything like this. He's literally pardoning his son for any crime that he may have committed during these years, everything from money laundering to murder. Now, he could obviously be charged with state offenses, but the statute of limitations have largely run on those offenses. So it's a really breathtaking act of contempt for the American people, and it has happened over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, he could have done this tightly framed to the two cases where he was indicted, the gun case and the tax case. But when you look at what he did, a 10-year period from 2014 to 2024, anything that happened during that time period, Jonathan, it really reminded me of the original plea deal, which the judge scoffed at. And so it's almost as if President Biden said, okay, we're going to put that back together for you, son. We're going to give you that deal that you wanted.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And, that plea agreement fell apart when the judge asked the prosecutor, have you ever seen anything like this? And the prosecutor said, no. Never. And it fell apart. Well, the president just recreated it and actually expanded on it. The difference is in the Nixon pardon, Ford wasn't implicated in any of those allegations. Yeah. This sweeps into offenses that have been alleged not just against Hunter Biden, but have implicated the president himself.
Absolutely.
So he's also a beneficiary from this pardon.
Absolutely. And that may be the whole story here. I mean, if it weren't that Biden was also implicated, President Biden, in this, it might make a little bit less sense. But this is the email from James Gilliar to Hunter, Tony Bobulinski, and others, which everyone will, of course, remember about a deal they were putting together, 10 held for the big guy when they're talking about the percentage breakdown in this deal. Now, this was when Biden was leaving the vice presidency, but these are all things that he did not want to come to light in any way, shape, or form, Jonathan.
That's right. And we also have things like the "What's Up" message, where Hunter Biden is saying, my father's sitting right next to me, and basically coercing a Chinese businessman to send more money, or he would use his father to retaliate. So, the Congress has been exploring the president's role in all of this, and this largely shuts that down. And this is what we've been writing about a long time. It also makes sense now about what was happening in these cases. As you and I have talked about before, none of the things that Biden did in court made sense to me as a criminal defense attorney. He was doing nothing but three-point shots that he was never going to sink. And in cases like this, you got defendants trying to get close to the basket to try to reduce the risk that they were facing. Hunter showed no concern at all. And the only explanation for that is that he believed that he had a pocket pardon, that his father would pardon him if everything else failed.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.